On today's show, it is part 2 with myself and Brian Schroeder talking about the non-lottery picks in the NBA draft this year, and all of that is coming up right now.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1728 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you deep into the night here on a Thursday into Friday at the end of May. And today's show is brought to you by folks at Prize Picks, the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. The place to go is prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use promo code LockedOnNBA when you get there for a first-time deposit match up to $100. Check it out now at Prize Picks. Also want to encourage you at the top of the podcast, as I always do, to make us your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Hawks. Go ahead and subscribe to the podcast right now on Apple or Spotify or both or Overcast. We're also on YouTube on the video side. And I'll stop you right now. This is part 2 of 2 with myself and Brian Schroeder. So if you missed part 1, I encourage you to start there. It's always more fun and informative to start with the beginning of the conversation and kind of flow through the rest of it. But this is going to be part 2 coming to you now. More prospects on the non-lottery side of things in the NBA draft. And we record this on Wednesday evening. So hopefully that is a good context. And without any further delay, here we go with part 2 of myself and Brian. You know what we have to do, at least quickly, because it's, again, contractually obligated. Let's talk about Bronny for 2 seconds.
He's not going to go in the lottery, I don't think.
That's why I'm bringing him up. So there's this whole story the other day about how, I can't remember which sportsbook it was that was taking bets on Bronny number 1 overall. It's kind of it's ridiculous talking point. But I've always liked Bronny. I think you have too, as like a theoretical player. What should people think about Bronny right now as a prospect? Try to separate everything else. What is Bronny?
Javon Carter.
Well, that's Johnny. Yeah. And by the way, I love Javon Carter. So he's a second round player. Like if based on college production, he wouldn't be drafted. But I'm also willing to give him a slack because that was the worst situation of all time. He was coming off of heart surgery, so he was not. He was not physically especially the first 5 or 10 games. He was winded. He was. It's really annoying me that people are not at least acknowledging that reality more in this discussion. Because I get he wasn't very productive in college this year, but the guy had a cardiac event and then came back with no time to ramp up. He just was suddenly playing again.
And he came back
acknowledging that.
He came back to a team that was so dysfunctional. The coach Andy Enfield quit to go coach at SMU. He didn't get fired. He left to go to SMU.
He did. What do you make of this? Because I have a theory about Bronny that the people that watched him in high school actually evaluate him as a prospect.
Yeah,
and the people that didn't watch him in high school are like, ha ha ha, Bronny is not really a prospect. Look at his numbers at USC. Everybody's like, look at his numbers at USC. I'm like, okay. Number one, he's never going to be a counting stats guy. That's not what he is.
The thing you need to look at everyone else's numbers at USC.
Well,
Kobe Johnson is not even in this draft. He was so bad.
And Kobe Johnson, and that's the thing. Kobe Johnson was a guy that I know you liked. And
I had him in the lottery at one point.
I still kind of like Kobe Johnson. It just fell apart. And it hurt Collier. I mean, we're not going to do a Collier thing on this, but that killed
Collier until the last 3 weeks when he decided to just get his own shot again. His efficiency went way up.
But
I realized he can't turn the ball over anymore if he stops passing to guys who suck.
Right. I will acknowledge we'll move off this that it's because of the discussion and everything, the story about it. It's hard. It's more nuanced because you got to draft the whole thing if you're taking Bronny.
And the thing with Bronny too,
we'll take a 2-way contract. That's all interesting stuff that matters.
The thing that's funny is you'll see, and it's been happening for years now. But you'll see this thing where people are like, teams only want to draft him because they might sign LeBron, and it's like that's silly in the lottery if you went in the lottery, but. If he was drafted in the 40s because somebody was like, hey, maybe we'll get LeBron, that's actually a pretty good investment. Well, if you could spend a second-round pick, well, it wouldn't happen this year.
Right. I just don't think that it's going to happen. I mean, I understood that was a talking point for a long time, but they've kind of messaged pretty hard like, hey, that's not going to be what happens here.
I still do think if he goes to, let's say, New Orleans or some mid-level playoff team, a team that in a year and a half will probably still be a team that can expect to win 45, 50 games. I could still see LeBron going there for his retirement year.
If Bronny's already there, not this year. Yeah.
No, next year.
That makes sense. And I also think, look.
And if that happened and you were able to, even if he doesn't play, if you're able to turn let's say the 45th pick into, I mean, listen, I hate being I'm a Bulls fan, so I hate giving props for financial champion stuff, but that would be an incredible amount. Like, do you have any idea how much money you would make? You would sell out every single game on every arena. That's what's going to happen if LeBron does the retirement tour thing.
If LeBron does that, yeah, exactly.
Which I think he probably will. He's LeBron.
So there's the Phoenix stuff with Bronny that's been out there. Obviously, the Lakers would think about drafting him just because they want to keep LeBron. I get all that. It is what it is. But I wanted to bring it up because I know you've liked his game. I like his game. I mean, he's a guy that I actually appreciate.
He will shoot fine. Yeah, he will be. I think if he hits, he'll be a Beverly or Javon Carter or Deuce McBride of he's a secondary kind of smaller guard who is a good athlete, good defender, will make good skip pass, is a quality passer and should shoot. He should shoot fine. He was 30 high 30s for 4 years in high school. He'll be a perfectly decent shooter.
We'll move away from him, but would you draft Bronny independent of everything else as a prospect?
Yeah, I wouldn't trade back in to get him, but I would draft him in pretty much anywhere after 40. I'd be like,
I was going to say somewhere in the 30s, 40s would be reasonable. Okay,
he's a good athlete. That's the thing.
I like his game.
Amazing that he's a good athlete, considering his parents are Savannah James, who was a track and field star in high school, and some guy.
Yeah, some guy. All right,
the greatest athlete that's ever lived.
Yeah. We talked about a bunch of wings. We could go to other positions. I know you have other guys that you want to get to, so let's talk about some other guys that you like or that your favorites or whatever. If we could go
centers.
Let's go to bigs because let's talk about them.
Edey, I'm gonna skip over. Everyone's heard about Edey. Everyone knows about Edey.
No. Actually, while we're here, quickly, I get lots of questions about your guy Kel'el Ware, so I want to give you 2 minutes on Kel'el Ware because I know you love him.
Well, I'm not even counting him because he's in my lottery. But
I know that. That's why this is special dispensation because
I will say
I'll say he's very polarizing,
which is strange because he shouldn't be. He was efficient and productive all year. He basically didn't have it. He had 3 games that weren't good, and 2 of those were against Klingon and Edey. And even then, he played good defense.
The most prominent intel board is ESPN, right? He's 25th on their board right now.
Which is, 25th isn't that bad. I've seen
it's not crazy,
30s
but
and
it's
40s, which is absurd.
Yeah, I just lower than you would think in my.
Well, I'll say this about ESPN's intel board: the intel is not as good as it was 2 or 3 years ago.
Well, yeah, but I mean, even Sam. So Sam's going. I think he has him in the 30s. There's people in the league that are just out on the Kel'el experience. I don't know what it is, but
they haven't watched his games. I don't know. He was fine this year. He was
good this year. He was.
He was very productive. He probably had the single best combine performance of anybody. He dominated the combine. He could shoot at 7 foot. He seems like a pretty safe guy to bet on outside of the top 10 to 12. And I would probably, if the Bulls don't take him at 11, I'm going to probably shed a single tear.
All right.
Not even so much because I love him, but just because, hey, the Bulls have a chance to have an above-average NBA athlete on their team.
He's got some feeling.
We don't want that.
All right.
They don't have a single above-average NBA athlete. I wouldn't say. Patrick is the closest, and Patrick is coming off of
is Levine's still a good athlete, isn't he?
Is he going to play basketball for the Bulls?
That's the question. Okay, moving. Today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks. Get on the action right now in the playoff action. In particular, win 100 times the money on PrizePicks as you enter all kinds of games at PrizePicks. The world's best players take on the game to a new level. Their basketball's postseason, and that's right. For example, you turn $10 into $1,000 with entry today at PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. It's something for every single sports fan in your life that comes from basketball and hockey to League of Legends and everything in between. PrizePicks is the best way to get on the action in more than 30 states across the country. That includes Georgia and California, as well as Texas. They have injury insurance. You can actually have your entry stay in play, even if one of your players happens to be injured. PrizePicks is also really simple to play. I can make the picks to make my interest in just a minute or less at PrizePicks. It's huge for me. One of the big reasons that I've really enjoyed diving into the PrizePicks app for a long time now, and I'm telling you for a long time in this space, in fact. They have quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, enormous selection of players and stat types you can't find anywhere else. They also make PrizePicks the #1 fantasy sports app. And the place to go right now to download the app is the Google Play or App Store. PrizePicks app is available to you right now. And when you get there, use the promo code LOCKEDONNBA for first deposit match up to $100. One more time, download the app. Use promo code LOCKEDONNBA when you get there for first time deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with Prize Picks. Other bigs, I just want to at least mention Ware because I know that's one of your guys.
That's my boy.
Lower down the board. I'm looking at names right now, but I'll let you take it where you want to go.
Ulrich Chomsky has had a very good pre-draft process. I think he's going to be in the top 45.
NBA Academy, correct?
NBA Academy guy. Yeah, he was going to go to Texas probably. I don't know if that's confirmed, but he is the youngest player in this draft. He was born in December 2005. I think he was born like the 26th, the 27th. So if he was a week younger, he would not be in this draft. But he, the guy I kept thinking of, and it's kind of a weird one, and this is one you'll probably remember because I think you were at the Summer League. Do you remember Dwayne Dedman as a prospect, where he was like really not good, but really large, and every 5 to 10 plays would do something like, oh, that's interesting. I think that's Chomsky, but he's maybe a little less raw than that. Like, he's not as raw. He is raw. He's very young. He's still relatively new to basketball, but he's not – it's not a Biyombo thing where he just doesn't know what he's doing. He's just – I'm just running full speed until, like, something happens. Or like a young Oscar Tshiebwe thing where it's like, what? Chomsky has more flashes of, like, making reads and processing things and guessing on – and making – and you know – guessing is the wrong word. Making reads that you would think he would. And I think at 6'11", 225, 230, 7'4" wingspan, probably will shoot okay. You draft that guy. Like, give him a year or two. We'll see what he is. He could probably be a backup center. Bona's he's just too small for me, but he's still in that range. I've mentioned Oso before. John Mobo is kind of a power forward, but he is number 2 in the country in dunks. The number 1 and number 2 guys were Zach Edey, who's 7'4", 300 pounds, and Jonathan Mobo, who's 6'7", 220 pounds.
I saw you comped him to Kenneth Fareed on Twitter the other day.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that. I hadn't thought about that, but I could totally see
a little bit of Brandon Clark, a little bit of Kenneth Fareed of like this guy's is undersized, but he is a finisher.
Like a 6'8" center, but also like just a hyper athletic, plays really hard, flies around,
finishes everything. Yeah, really fun guy. Let's see. Dylan Dessou is a guy that I'm kind of backing on from Texas. He was a guy who was kind of a prospect when he was younger. At
one point, yep.
Knees blew up, but he played a full season this year, and he was hitting hot mid-40s from 3 at 6'9", 230, which is like, okay. Let's see. Isaac Jones from Washington State had a great G League camp, great combine thing. He just was a 6'8", 240 guy, rebounded everything. I don't know if he's an NBA player, but he played his ass off and just was really fun. That's pretty much it for like that range of bigs that I think are actually like draftable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at like
because then you got like
PJ Hall on this list.
PJ Hall is a shooter. He's a shooting big. He's
not
better than Hunter Tyson, but I don't really think he's an NBA player.
Where are you on the N'Faly Dante experience?
He's just too old.
Okay,
like too old, and like again, it's strange because he's younger than Tyon Grant-Foster, but he's been playing. He just played 6 years of college basketball.
Was he there for 6 years?
He was hurt. Yeah, he got hurt.
Oh, I know he got hurt. That's a lot.
I think it was 6. It's at least 5.
No, I think you're right.
N'Faly's a pro. Like, he could be a two-way guy. I think I'd be happy giving him a two-way because then you could try him out.
He was good this year at Oregon. He was
very good. He's a very good college basketball player.
That's why I'm asking. I thought he was good this year, legitimately.
Yeah. He will be a professional basketball player and will be a good one. I just don't know if it's NBA because he's just got so much wear and tear on his tires. I kind of feel that way about Jaden Ledee, former Ohio State guy, who, if he was drafted, would be almost certain. I don't think he will be, but interesting fact. Let me make sure of this before I commit to it. Well, I think he's now that Sears is Sears is a 2001 guy. Never mind. Yeah, I think he's the only guy who could possibly be drafted who was born in the 20th century in this class because he was born in 1999. Boo Booey's not getting drafted.
And that's probably the last guy ever to be drafted.
Already. I mean, I had it. Imagine. Was it Slauson was the last guy? Let me look. Last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I made this. I made a tweet about it. So,
of course you did.
Yeah. I was tracking it. Pickett and Slauson last year. Jalen Pickett and Jalen Slauson. were probably the last 2 NBA draft picks to be born in the 20th century.
Well,
I knew Lawson was one of them. But if Jaden Ledee goes, then it'll be him. It definitely won't be anyone next year. No 26-year-olds are getting drafted next year. I'm pretty sure about that.
Just somebody come out of nowhere, but no, it's a good thing to at least file away.
Tyrese Samuel's another guy I just like, just a big strong guy, but I don't know if he's like a real prospect. There's not as many bigs, although there's some backup bigs this year.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so that's like there's a bunch of bigs, but like also, we haven't talked about the guards at all.
There's more guards.
There's a lot of guards. Some of them went back to school, like Mark Sears went back to school. Matthew Moreau went back to school. You know Tristen Newton?
Mm-hmm. Those two guys you mentioned were not top. Yeah, those are not my top 75. Tristen Newton is a top 40 guy for me. I love him.
So what's the pitch there? Because I obviously great college player.
Is. I mean, he's big. He's 6'4", 6'5", 200 pounds, and he's another kind of guy. He's just okay at a lot of things, but what he's great at is just running offense and just, I don't know, using his size really well. We've seen that in these playoffs. Brunson, even a guy like AJay McConnell is like a stout guy. We've seen in these playoffs, like I think Redick talked about this, and I agreed with him. I mean, obviously having a great first step is the best attribute any guard can have. That's why Topic is a top 5 prospect to me, and it's like it's what you need. But you also the last step, the decel, the ability to take the balance, the shiftiness, the ability to absorb contact and still get shots up. I mean, that's why Brunson is what he is. That's why Doncic is what he is.
Yep.
Shea is great at that stuff. That seems to be the path for actually being with the NBA getting bigger and longer, and these guys more and more Evan Mobleys and Wembanyama's and Chet Holmgrens. It's like you're not. Rudy Gobert is Rudy Gobert, but like, and even then he's still pretty good at it. But like, there's not as many big stiffs. There's no Jeff Withies, and there's no like Greg Ostertags. You can just run right by. You can just blast by to the rim and score on. There's even the backup centers are like Hartenstein and like, I mean, Drummond is really agile. Like, Okongwu, like backup centers in the NBA are not big plotting. The Shaq stopper guy has been gone for a long time. Like, yeah,
there are very few of those guys around.
There's very few huge plotting guys. That's why I've had doubts about Edey, and that's why I think, despite his combine number, it was really funny to see people be like, his combine numbers were good. No, they were bad, but they were like normal bad. They were like, yeah, that guy's not very fast. They weren't like, he's the slowest man on earth.
I would say they were
good for him.
I would say they were good for his size, given how enormous he is.
Yeah.
Yes.
But like an NBA
other centers, no. But yeah,
he's going to be hunted. He's going to be blown past. But it's not going to be a thing where he's just like a turnstile out there, which really helps his case. And that's kind of why I'm. I don't know. He's not in my top 30. But if he goes like 20 to 30, I'm not gonna. But yeah, okay. Like he will score. Yeah. There's the Edey talk. He's one of the best college basketball players of the 21st century.
I said the same thing. I think he's a first round pick for me, not as high as for other people, and he's an incredible college player. That's where I'll leave it for now.
But anyway, I was talking about that because I was talking about guards, and that's where I'm kind of at with Newton. Like Newton's just you watch his. I went and looked at his the Big East tournament games because you can't watch NCAA tournament games. And it was like all of his layup attempts, he's never blowing past anybody, but he's also never really contested at the rim because he just gets there and uses his strength and his craft and his ability. And if he can get to the rim like at all, he's a competent shooter. He's a very good passer. He's a big, huge guy. Like I don't see why he's not a third guard in the NBA for 10 years.
I mean, I guess the counter would be like his 2-point numbers were really bad, like really bad. And I don't know
his rim numbers weren't that bad though. Let me look at them. They weren't great, but his rim numbers
was it more than his mid rangers? Because like he had a couple of full seasons where he was shooting like 40% or lower on twos. So I was like, I don't know, why is he shooting this bad on twos? I think it might have been just his first year at UConn.
Yeah, he was about 60%. He's a little under 60% at the rim.
Honestly, his shooting 3-point numbers
which is
I thought they were. Like his 3-point shooting numbers, like he doesn't, he didn't get guarded a ton, but he took them. Like he took. He took 200 threes this year at UConn. Like he only shot 32%, but he was not shy. He was firing them away, and they were telling him to. Right. Yeah. He can't just be left alone. So I like him. He is older, but a legitimate 6'5" guy who can really pass and rebounds, and I tend to like those guys. So.
Yeah, I like Tristen a lot. Let's go with the rest of my tier 3 guys here. I talk about AJay Mitchell to death everywhere. I just love him. The competition level is the question with him, but he is one of the better self-creation, like drive and finish guys in the last 5 drafts. Easy. Competent passer, big guy. The defense looks fine. He's never really had to shoot, but the shooting was okay this year. He got better at it. He just seems like, the guy I kept thinking of watching every time I watch him is Kobe White, where it's like he's not explosive, but he's huge. 6'4", 200 easy, 6'6", 6'7" wingspan, and just bullies people with the rim, is really creative. Nice. He's a lefty layup guy. He's not just a lefty, he's a lefty layup guy, which is tough. I just really like AJ. I think he's a top 25 pick in this draft. I think he's just going to step onto a court in the NBA and just be pretty good. Devin Carter, who probably will be a lottery pick at this point. I get it because he has the length and the pull-up deep shooting to be like that guy might be like a low-level star.
Carter and Bub Carrington are both seemingly skyrocketing, which is
Bub's
not
going
surprising.
back up, which is good. Bub, I realize he's almost the exact same build as Shake Milton, and I wanted to make that my comp, but I was like, he's already so much better a shooter than Shake Milton.
SMU legend Shake Milton. I loved him in college.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's already much more. He's faster, more dynamic, and is already a much better. Like Bub is a real. He took his lumps. He had some real rough stretches, but he still did have like the pull up shooting for a 6'4", 6'5" pick and roll like full time point guard guy. It's tough. It's tough. Like he was really hard to guard, really tough for teams to cover. So I think the guy it's weird that they played together. Nikhil Alexander Walker might be a guy he profiles more like, where like if the shot's going, he's got to go to the floor. Similar to Nikhil was kind of not that explosive and not a finisher in college, but I think has gotten better at it. And Bub this is Carlton Bub Carrington from Pitt, by the way.
Yes.
Carlton Carrington Jr., the most Baltimore named man who's ever lived. That is like that's like a nickname somebody would have on The Wire. Little Bub. It is. It's straight up like it's a Baltimore name. I know. I asked somebody from Maryland, and like, yeah, that's a Baltimore ass name. But he is a July 05 birthday, so he's still 18. He's really fit. Yeah, he was a guy I had kind of in the lottery earlier in the year when he was consistently shooting really well, and then he fell off the face of the earth, and I kind of was like, he's gonna go back to school. Then he had a good run last 6-7 games, almost got pitted into the tournament. And I think where he is now is about right. I think he should be 15 to 35. Like,
yeah, I like him.
I like him. Nick Clifford, I like a lot. It's just like a bad dude.
Do you believe in Tyler Kolek
as a backup point guard? Sure. Yeah, as a 15-minute a game backup,
as Monty Morris, basically,
or as like Jordan McLaughlin. Yeah, we're having a lot of Wolves tonight.
Right? Yeah, I didn't mean to do that. Monty's always my go-to like clear backup point guard who's just like in the league forever.
I think he's a lot quicker than Kolek, though. Monte is very quick.
But
Kolek is a master of when he makes a bad pass, like. Making mistakes is one thing. Like you can get tricked by defense, you can get pushed into stuff. It's not so much making mistakes. This is the Tyus Jones, Monte Morris thing, though. It's like even the Chris Paul thing for a while. It's not that you can make a bad read and get intercepted. It's like these guys don't miss passes. Like when the pass is there, you never see these guys throw a lob, too tall or like miss a bounce pass or an entry pass. Like that's the thing with Kolek is it's not even that he doesn't make mistakes. He has turnovers. Every point guard will have turnovers, but it's like it's not from him trying something stupid or over dribbling or like dribbling out of bounds. Like those are the turnovers you need. It's if he gets turned over, it's because somebody made a play on him. Otherwise, like Kolek is the most accurate passer. He's a super accurate passer. Like he just goes, the ball goes where he wants it to go, and so he's probably an NBA player. He's 6'2" with a 6'2" wingspan. He's 23.
He's not that small, but he's big. He's not very big, is what I'm saying.
No, and unlike a McConnell type of guy, he doesn't have like the weirdo crap. That's why McConnell is good.
I will bet you real American currency that someone compares him to McConnell on the ESPN draft broadcast. That's why I brought that up. They will kind of vaguely looks like him.
They do look kind of like him. The difference is there's craft. People use crafty to mean like white and slow.
Correct.
And I use crafty to mean like Tristen Newton is crafty.
He is crafty. That's a good point. Yes.
McConnell is super crafty. Where it's like these guys have. Jalen Brunson is maybe the craftiest basketball player of all time.
Well, that's also why McConnell's in the league. If he wasn't crafty, he wouldn't be in the league.
No. Where it's like Kolek is honestly just makes pretty basic pick and roll reads. He doesn't do anything really special or like.
He's just solid.
Yeah, he's very good. He's good. He's good at basketball, but he's not like super creative. Is what I would say.
That's a good point.
Whereas like craftiness to me is like, are you dribbling to your right, doing a gather step, doing an up fake, coming the other way, and shooting like a 8-foot lefty hook? I saw Tristen Newton do that once, and I was like, "What? Why?
What is that?"
Leonard Miller is a great example of that. Like, what?
What? Guy.
Yeah, and Leonard Miller, who I'd have top 5 in this draft.
The streak continues. If you mentioned Leonard Miller on this podcast, I think
Leonard Miller
5 in a row. No, we're
my
good.
Boy, Leonard.
One more guy I have seen the biggest splits on over like multiple years is Trey Alexander.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Are you still in it all, or have you given up on Trey Alexander?
He's in my 4th tier. He's in the same tier as Kolek, Reese Beekman, Jamal Shead,
by the way,
everyone loves.
Out of Creighton, and I was coming back to Jamal Shead in a second. I've seen people still like first round pick Trey Alexander, and then I've seen people who are like, I used to be there, and I'm not there anymore.
That's the thing with Trey Alexander. Not just game to game, possession to possession, he'll look like a first round pick, and then he'll look like a scrub. He's still 6'4" with really long arms and can shoot. I worry. The guy I kind of keep thinking of, I think it's who I copped him to on my capsule board, is James Bouknight. Because James Bouknight, this is the thing, he got hurt, yes, in the NBA. He was never going to be very good. He was never going to be consistent. It's like scales of Jordan Poole. You can say this is a Jordan Poole guy because Jordan Poole did this. He's just more athletic and more dynamic than these guys. But like, if you're going to be a bench scoring guard, it's fine to be. Some games you just don't have it. Some nights your shot's off and they just won't play you. What you can't be doing is possession by possession, just being completely wild.
Yeah,
almost like unpredictable.
Coachable like that. I'll tell you that right now.
The exact opposite of what I was talking about with Kolek and even Newton, because Kolek he is this every game. You're getting the same thing from every game, which is why he's a backup point guard and will probably be in the league longer than almost anything we've talked about tonight. Because a coach will feel very comfortable putting Tyler Kolek in a game in basically any scenario. Like, he will be fine. He will not lose you a game. Trey Alexander's won games for Creighton. He's lost games for Creighton.
Yep, I agree.
There's still a lot of talent there, and I think he will probably get drafted. If not, he will be a immediate undrafted guy.
Immediate two-way or something. Yeah.
Because the talent is very interesting. I'm just less – I have almost no FOMO for him anymore.
No, I knew you liked him at one point, and I was just seeing. It struck me in the last couple of days. Like he just does this huge split. A guy I just mentioned him. So did you, Jamal Shead. I love Jamal Shead. He's not quite on Ryan Dunn for me, but he's right there. I think he might be my next guy. That's like, I love Jamal Shead.
Jamal Shead.
Defensively, man, he's a monster.
You will know you have played basketball game when you play Jamal Shead.
A guy who's what, maybe 6'2"? Like,
no, he's 6 foot, 6'1" tops.
That's why maybe
3 pounds, 6'3.5" wingspan. He does. It's funny because they were teammates, but he does. A lot of people really enjoyed.
Okay, so he measured 6 1/4 inch without shoes. That's 6 foot. That's almost 6'2".
He's 6'1". He's 6'1".
Getting there.
Sorry. But a lot of people really enjoyed watching Marcus Sasser. He's one of the few enjoyable Pistons this year. True. Jamal Shead is basically that, but he's not a very good shooter.
Not as good of a shooter, yeah.
Not a very good
much better
shooter.
score. Much better score in college.
Yeah, Shead is pretty much an effort, energy, 6 foot guy. Like it may not work in the NBA, but he would definitely be like Christian Vital a few years ago. That's a guy I think of. I love Christian Vital.
I know you do.
Or like Nate Hinton. I'm thinking of Houston guys now. But like these are guys where like I don't know if I'm drafting them, but that is a priority undrafted free agent for me. Like Jamal Shead.
Yeah, I think if Shead doesn't get an instant two-way would not be surprising to me.
Yeah.
From somebody.
Because I want to get that guy, even if he's not a guy who's on my team long term. He's not like an actual building block guy, which he probably isn't. He's a 6 foot point guard who can't shoot really. But can't shoot as strong. He's not a very good shooter.
He can shoot a little. He had some big games too at Houston offensively. But you're right. I think where you're going with this is right about like just the tone setting, like having a guy on your.
I want that guy in my summer league roster. I want that guy in my training camp because he's going. You are not like I can't imagine what practices are like against that guy. You are not having an easy. You're not taking it easy at practice with Jamal Shead on the other side.
I think he also would. I have this bit that I always do about two ways where like there's two kinds of them and there's one that's like the low ceiling guy who's like going to be able to help you if you need him in a pinch. I think he's that. I think he's that. I think if you have 2 injuries, you got to play this guy. He'll guard. He won't screw up. Like
different kind of player, but a guy who's been on many two ways who was that kind of older guard was like Dwayne Washington.
Very similar.
Like not very different like play style, but Dwayne Washington was a guy when he got a two-way. It's like he will play. Like somebody will get hurt, they'll need a guy to throw in there.
And that's why teams sign. And generally speaking, teams have different philosophies, but like given the weight, because you have 3 two-ways now, it's like it's not a bad idea.
I would always have one of those guys. I would always have one of those guys personally.
I agree. And the Hawks, have done both. They've done kind of both things, but they usually have
Jacob Gilliard. Jacob Gilliard is a guy to bring him up.
Very similar to Shed. All right. Well, before I let you go, is there a guy that you want to plant your flag on that we've not mentioned so far? It could be deep sleeper, could be a first rounder that you like more than everybody else does. Don't care.
I kind of did everybody. I mean, the only tier 3 guys we didn't talk about were KJ Simpson and Jared McCain, and they're kind of the same little guard
Jared
guy.
Jared McCain's getting lottery buzz though.
Yeah, I get it. He can shoot. He can really shoot. So if you think there's a chance he could be close to as good as Dillingham, then I can get it. I don't see the athleticism. I don't see the dynamism. I don't see the passing for McCain. The guy I looked at, I was looking at again. I did a good amount of time doing Bartorvik comps and doing physical comps, and Jared Bayless is kind of who came up with me for Jared McCain.
Which I mean, it's not a bad career. He was in the league for a long time.
But it's for me, the guy with Dillingham is like Kemba, and it's like that's a guy. Sure,
it's almost different. No, and Bayless, and I think it depends on where you take it. Always depends on where you take the guy. But if you take McCain at 17 and he becomes Jared Bayless, like it's not a great pick, but it's not a disaster. That's an NBA player. If somebody goes crazy, takes him at 10.
I do have a guy.
Okay,
guy we didn't mention. DaRon Holmes II.
Oh God, I forgot. Okay,
the wonderful DaRon Holmes.
I'm in on DaRon Holmes as well.
He's just. I was talking to someone at Summer League last year, and it was like the only reason he's not in the NBA right now is because the NBA doesn't understand what he is. He is. I'm not going to compare him directly because he's very different physically, but he could be a Nas Reed in 3 or 4 years of like a matchup guy who can score on any center. He is really fast, really smooth, really athletic. Just the measure, he's like 6'9", 225, 7'1" wingspan. So, but like he has maybe more like Christian Wood physically. Of like Christian Wood, even now, if he faces up on a center, he's probably getting to the rim and scoring. Yeah. And like DaRon slowly worked on his shot and is like a pick and pop guy now. They ran him around screens a little bit. It's just strange to me that like a guy like Obi Toppin, who's a good basketball player, who was overdrafted some, but it was a top 20 pick. It's a good player.
Yep.
Was at Dayton, was National Player of the Year, and DaRon is like an afterthought in a worse draft. And it's like, I'm not saying he's better, but the numbers are pretty similar.
And he's not the same. Athletically, he isn't the same as what Obi was.
Here's the thing, though. here's the thing. Obi is athletic in the Grayson Allen sense.
Oh, no. By the way, we agree here. I'm just saying the perception of Obi's athleticism when he was drafted was higher than it actually is. Like he was seen as this like super twitchy and and by the way, he some impressive dunks when he can load up. It looks great.
When he can load up is the difference. Correct. Yeah, DaRon is a off balance 1 foot runner guy. Like he has so much stuff. There's just so many ways for him to score. Garbage man, pick and pop shooting, off screens, DHOs. Like I really feel like what makes him fascinating is he does all that while having like a Nick Claxton frame, where like he has like that sinewy length. He's a really interesting player. Like Christian Wood is the only guy I can think of.
7'1" wingspan. Like he weighted at almost 240, which is actually
DaRon put on some size. DaRon is ready to give you 12 to 15 points a game off the bench.
I mean,
Bobby Portis style. Like he's
the last 2 years, he was incredibly good.
Yeah,
at Dayton, like incredibly good. This year, he averaged 20, 21, 9 rebounds, 54, 39 shooting. Like really very impressive. So, sign me up for the DaRon Holmes experience. In general,
I would be all over if I was a team that, especially if I was a team that didn't have like bench scoring or had a spot or like, well, we could use somebody to come in and play. I'd be all over DaRon in like the late 20s.
Makes sense to me.
All over him.
I think he's a first rounder too. So
yeah, I love DaRon. He's a strange basketball player and a good basketball player, which is the ultimate Leonard Miller style player for me.
The ultimate Brian guy. Weird, good. Well, thank you, sir, for doing this.
Leonard Miller.
You were my first and only call to do the non-lottery sickos podcast.
Those are my favorite guys, man. Shout out to Theus Jeffers. That's my boy. I know.
This is why you were my first call. Anything to plug? Patreon.
Shout out Sunday out of Gaines. Remembering some guys.
Georgia legend, Sunday out of Gaines.
No, I mean my Patreon stuff. I'm mostly wrapping up. I'm actually pretty much once we get off of here, I'm going to take off all the guys who went back to school off my capsule board.
Yep. Get
out a new actual big board, and my capsule board is 100 pages right now. So I might. Ooh. It's 100 pages. To be honest, only the top 40 guys have like anything actually written about them. It's just I made sure to get actual blurbs and actual stats all the way down this time.
Oh, and you also have photos, which is part of the reason why it's 100 pages long.
Yeah. But yeah, I figured even I don't want to write out like 3 paragraphs on like the 75th player in the draft. So why would anyone want to read it?
There's still time. I'd read it. I'm just
I'll write more about when those guys get drafted or signed to teams is when I do my draft grades and write a little more, a couple paragraphs, just like, hey, this is what he does. But yeah, once I do that, then I'm going to probably just spend a couple weeks finishing up the board and put it out probably around like, I want to put it out with like a week and a half. So
as we're talking, it's
out now. You can look at it.
Yeah, it's available. I'm just saying, like as we're talking, it's 4 weeks to the draft as we're talking. So 2 to 3 weeks, it'll be free to all. I don't believe in paywalling stuff that close to the draft because anyone who's really looking, I need to read 100 pages on the draft right now. Well, I feel like I'm doing a service to give you. No, you can
something that is at least more well considered than whatever you're getting from like
I am a patron and I've been reading it for quite some time and I'll be reading it again along the way so I can be a first-hand aficionado of that. So sign me up.
G. Nathan Williams. I'm just mentioning guys now.
All right, Brian. Well, thank you for being here, my friend. As always, maybe if the Hawks do something weird, or I don't know, maybe I'll get you to come on and talk about whoever they draft number 1 after the draft. We'll see.
Or the summer league team.
If anybody's missed it, Brian and I did talk post lottery to talk about the options. So that podcast is still available in your podcast feed. Nothing's really changed since then, so that's still available for you too. If you want to talk about the top of the draft, and again, read Brian's stuff at Patreon, Twitter, all that stuff. Thank you, sir. As for everybody else, please subscribe to this podcast, and we'll see you all next time.